Hello, friends, and welcome to my today's lecture, that is on the themes in Emperor Jones, Part 2. In my earlier lecture, I had discussed about racism as being one of the most important themes in the play Emperor Jones by Eugene O'Neill. I had also mentioned the differentiation or the demarcation that exists between the blacks and the whites in the society, even today, up to some extent. Today, I'll be talking about another theme, that is history and collective memory. Now, when we read through the play, we see that as Brutus runs into the forest, escaping from the rebellious natives of the Caribbean island, he is confronted with the apparitions that were summoned by the natives, who force him to confront history, both on the personal level as well as on a grand scale. Now, as in the play, Jones is forced to see and experience his past and a history of slavery that has been continuing since last 200 years. The play asserts the fact that it is rather impossible for any black person to escape this legacy of slavery, even though they might go in any part of the world or in whatever they may do. Now, initially, we find that Brutus Zone, he tries to run away from his own past and the history of slavery by relocating himself in that Caribbean island from the United States. Now he comes here after murdering another black man in a dice game, acting as a sort of black on black violence, which occurs only in the white people's regime or power, where blacks are not allowed to gain money by any other means except by involving in illicit or illegal gambling. Now, while Jones was imprisoned for the first murder, he kills a white prison guard and then escapes to that island. Now, when he kills that prison guard, he literally kills a representative figure of the white authority in the US and escapes to the island where no such authority does exist. Now, once he reaches there, we see that he is quite cool and thinks that he has been truly successful in escaping his past and escaping his past by escaping from the place, that is the United States. Now he finds that here in that new island where he has gone, he would elevate himself. He could actually elevate himself much higher than he could do in the United States. So it's important to note that in all this, there is nobody with him. He does it all alone. And by acting alone, he feels that he has been able to divorce or rather separate himself from the biases and the cultural narratives that keep him trapped in the collective memory of the slavery in the United States. Or we may say it, if we say it in other terms, we may say that Jones feels that memory and past, both of them are inseparable from locale and the community. And then by changing the locale, one can escape from the past and also escape from the community and can go on to rewrite the direction of one's own future. Now, as Jones begins his journey through the forest, he sets out in the forest believing that he'll be completely away from his past and the slavery ridden history of the former black community and the ancestors. But when he is confronted with the apparitions that were sent by the natives of that island, his belief of leaving the past behind seems to be very foolish and impossible. The apparitions force Jones to accept his history by first sending the ghost of Jeff, the black man that he had murdered, and then of the white prison guard, and then other black convicts who worked on the chain gang. They then immerse Jones in a slave ship, and finally a religious sacrifice in Congo. Now, as these apparitions progress further, Jones interacts with them and thus participate in the chain gang, though unwillingly he does it, and later he seems unable to resist joining the black slaves in their wails and rocking in the slave ship. Now we find that Jones' very identity as an American black man inherently includes his slave ancestry and even the African ancestry. So, standing on the auction block and then participating in those tribal rituals, they are all collective memories of the African Americans and therefore of Jones's history that cannot be ignored. So, though Neil's identity as a white man and the period in which this play was written complicates some of these ideas, like it conveys a message to the black viewers that African Americans will never escape slavery and achieve equality for themselves and in the present context. But it also reminds us that such forces of racism are still at work in the American society, which oppress and dehumanize the people of color daily. Now, more themes I'll be discussing in the coming lectures of mine. Till then, goodbye and thank you, friends.